Welcome to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast here on your favorite podcast platform. My name is Father Robert J Carr, and I'm here every single day, Monday through Friday anyway, bringing you not only our teaching on usually our first reading, it can also cover other things, and we can also discuss all kinds of things in relation to that and our faith, but we also have another week of interviews. This time, we're interviewing the sister of Cardinal Thuan. And Cardinal Thuan, you may remember, was a Vietnamese cardinal who spent 13 years in prison. 9 of them are in solitary confinement. And I have to be honest, reading his story and interviewing his sister, I felt a little traumatized by it, so I want to warn you ahead of time, even though the very beginning of our interview is very benign, because you really have an understanding not only of the power of God, but also how evil can be, because it is clear that the way he was treated in Vietnam was just plain evil. So do be aware of that. And it's a rather stark story. And of course, he, after his prison time, he became a major voice in the church for human rights and major voice against the way many people were treated in various places in the world. And he also became a sign of reconciliation in Vietnam. So, fascinating story. But before we get there, we're going to talk about the first reading. And the first reading comes to us from Numbers. And it's a fascinating story in Numbers because of the ending. And I bring this up a lot in homilies. Do you ever find, well, of course, we can see that with Cardinal Thuan, but in your own life, do you ever find that you think the Lord has given you just a little bit too much? Maybe you're trying to make ends meet and you're finding it extremely hard. Maybe you're dealing with that son or daughter or sons or daughters that are extremely difficult to deal with. Maybe it's a spouse, and maybe you come to a point where you want to say to the Lord, I'm done. I've had it. And, just take me home now. Well, if you ever come to that point, don't get too discouraged, because you will find that among the people who came to that point was Moses. And that's what we see in today's reading. What's happening is Moses is dealing with the strange difficulties of having the various aspects of people who are constantly complaining. And remember, grumbling, which is another word for complaining in the Bible, is a word that indicates one of the worst sins in the Bible. The Lord hates grumbling. The worst sin of the Bible is idolatry, but what's up there is grumbling. And if you don't know what grumbling is, it's really simple. Oh, why do we have to do this? Oh, no, this is awful. Oh, I know this is kind of an awful story, but I remember I took a charter flight to Cancun, Mexico. I spent a few days on vacation in Cancun, and let's face it, a vacation in Cancun is a great vacation. Well, in any case, it was a few days, and now, and it was a charter. It was one of those, this is long before COVID. This is probably in the the mid-90s. And there were a whole bunch of companies that offered these real low-cost vacations. Well, one of them was a company called TNT. And so I took a 3-day vacation in the Cancun. It was a great experience. And so as we are getting ready to fly home, now remember, because of the nature of the vacation, it was done through a charter company, and I forget the name of the company, but it was done through a charter company. So I'd never heard of the airlines. Well, of course not, because it was a charter airlines. And it was a decent flight. It was a decent jet. I mean, we didn't fly on plastic airplanes with rubber band propellers or anything like that. It was a real, honest to goodness airplane, 7 something. from Boeing. And but the person sitting in front of me was grumbling constantly. Oh, I hate this airline. Oh, now we were delayed in taking off from Cancun, and the reason why was there was a major storm that was striking New England, and of course we're heading back to Boston. So it was a major storm that was causing a lot of delays of all flights. And of course, the problem wasn't us flying out of Cancun, it was us flying into Boston. So it was delayed a little while. And finally we get on the plane. And the person sitting in front of me was complaining about everything. Oh, I hate this airline. Oh, I hate this. Oh, I hate this. Oh, isn't it awful the way they treat us? And oh, gosh. And you know, that wears you down after a while. So there I am putting up with, I mean, I'm not saying anything, I'm just putting up with all this grumbling. Well, apparently one problem the airline had was the pads that you will find on seats. So if you look carefully, when you go sit on a seat, there is a little pad that's like, it's not a headrest because it's not that big, but it covers the headrest. Well, in this case, what did the pad attach to? It attached to Velcro. So in any case, it just so happened that her pad, I don't know, came off or it fell or whatever the case may be. And so her hair fell onto the Velcro that was on the seat that the pad was going to connect to. So there she is. Oh, I hate this. Oh, this is awful. Oh, what? And then come to find out, because of the pad, her hair got stuck in the Velcro. And I'm looking at that going, oh my God, that's awful. And, you know, they had the flight attendants came over to try to help her get it out. Because if you really understand, Velcro is designed to have whatever attaches to it, and hopefully more Velcro stays there. So they had to work on removing her. But I have to admit, if there was any person on that flight who I could say deserved that to happen, and I assure you I had nothing to do with it, it was her. Because that constant complaining and and so it was. Well, that's what Moses is complaining about. The constant, we should have meat. We should have this. This should be better. We should be doing this. And this should be better. And I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you run a trip for someone and usually people are intensely grateful, but you always deal with those people who occasionally are just constantly complaining, and no matter what you do, it's a constant complaint. And I remember in my first parish, we ran a trip to Six Flags, and sure enough, there were some people that just hated the whole experience. They didn't like the bus. They didn't like this. They didn't like that. The lines are down. Well, that grumbling is considered a sin. And that's what people are doing to Moses. And Moses is dealing with the people who are constantly complaining. And he's hearing them weeping and complaining. And finally, Moses says to the Lord, why are you treating me so badly? I have to deal with this constant complaining. This is something that's just irritating me. I can't stand it. I hate this. And finally he says, basically, just take me home now. I've had enough. And you know, what's an important part of the story is to understand that this is Moses. I already told you, Moses is the first prophet of the Bible. He's really the first one. What is a prophet? Is someone who speaks for God. He is the first one who speaks for God. Really, I mean, we can look at the whole history of the Bible up to Moses, and we really don't see it to the level. Maybe we could say Noah in a sense, but it's really Moses, because Moses goes to hear the Lord, and then he's told by the Lord to go out and bring his message. That is prophecy. And he is the first prophet. And then he also goes out and does what the Lord asks of him. And he leads the people and he's leading them into the promised land. And they are constantly complaining. And it comes to a point that that Moses says, I'm done. I am absolutely done. So if you ever come into that position, maybe you have as a parent, as maybe a job you have, maybe you're a teacher, maybe you're whatever. Could be any kind of a job you have. And what you get is it wears you out to the point you just say, I'm done. But it also reflects the importance of prayer, because prayer is important because we're all going to deal with those challenges. But when you pray, you realize that you can bring those challenges to the Lord. And if you don't pray, you can realize how much worse those challenges may feel to you. Because even Moses came to the point where he just says, I'm done. I've had enough of this. I don't like this anymore. I'm done. And know that. But bring your trials to the Lord. Now, one of the interesting things is, today is the memorial of St. John Vianney. He is the saint of parish priests. And as a parish priest, this reading was used in our ordination. When I was ordained, one of my classmates chose all the readings, and this is the reading he chose. You know, obviously he chose them and said, you go along with it? Yeah, that's fine. This was the reading he chose. And I don't know if it's because it may have come from the feast of St. John Vianney, the memorial of St. John Vianney. I don't know, but this was the reading he chose. And I always remember that, because this is the reading when here we are about to be ordained priests, and we're hearing this reading of Moses saying, I'm done. I've had enough, to remind us that, yes, this is a wonderful time and this is a great time. But yeah, there is this difficulty that is just part of ministry, and you need the Lord's strength. That's why I'm always telling people about praying. That's why parents need to pray. That's teachers, and everyone who wants to be a serious Catholic has to have a serious prayer life, because you will come to that point, and you have to realize the Lord led you to that point because he knows you could deal with the burden of whichever it is that you're dealing with, and wants to give you his grace. But it will be difficult. We'll be right back right after this. You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452. That's 617-297-7452. 617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try. 617-297-7452, 617-297-7452. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out, patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. We're back, and we're talking about this powerful message that we experience with Moses in Numbers, when Moses came to the point of saying, I'm done. And so maybe you have a son or a daughter that are very difficult for you to deal with. Persevere, because that's the important thing. That's what Moses ended up doing. But persevere, and also in your prayer, because the Lord has given you that son or daughter who are difficult to handle for you, or that job, or whatever case may be. But he wants to give you the grace to be able to deal with it, just as he does with Moses. And this is a powerful story that we see here. And it doesn't matter whether you're a priest, whether you're a parent, whether you're whatever job you're doing. If you want to come to serve the Lord, one of my favorite passages reminds us that if you want to come to serve the Lord, you're going to come to a difficult time. For, as this passage says, Sirach 2:1-11. For in fire, gold is tested. So always keep that in mind. When you're going through that period where finally you come to the point and says, I'm done, that's when the Lord is testing you in fire. We're going to talk to Cardinal Thuan's sister, Elizabeth, who speaks to us from Canada. And she's going to tell us about the book, Cardinal Nguyen Thuan, Man of Joy and Hope. Author is Stéphane Leclerc, and it comes to us from Ignatius Press. And enjoy. If check out the book. You can find it on your favorite bookstore, brick and mortar, also Ignatius.com, and also your online bookstores. Let's switch over to my interview with Elizabeth, his sister, Cardinal Thuan's sister, Elizabeth Nguyen, Cardinal Thuan's sister, right now. So let me begin by the way I always begin, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, Father. Well, my name is Elizabeth Nguyen. I'm married and a grandmother. I have 3 adult children, and 2 of them, one has 3 boys living in Australia, and my daughter has 2 girls and living in Nova Scotia, Canada.
Oh, wow. Two opposite sides of the world in every sense of the term.
I know. And the third one, who has no children, lives in British Columbia, Canada, on the west side. And wow. Myself and my husband, we live in Windsor, Ontario, which is exactly across Detroit, separated by Detroit River and a bridge.
Oh, okay. I know exactly where you are then. I've never been to Detroit, but there is that bridge that goes right into Canada.
That's right. It's called Ambassador Bridge. And my husband and I, we are retired for a long time now. And he is retired in 2008, and I retired in 2008 also, but a different month. And I've been with the Catholic Education Board in this city for over 28 years.
Oh, wow. So you talk about, or you kind of oversee Catholic education for the city, or are you part of a board that's nationwide in Canada?
Yes, I am the board. I am part of the board of education that belongs to the Diocese of London. And so we have 1 hour of religion each day during our day, and we teach the teachers who teach the primary school teach all the sacraments.
Oh,
and the First Communion, Sacrament of Reconciliation, and then at grade 8, at 14 years old, then they have the Sacrament of Confirmation.
Wow. Oh, okay. Then it's funny. We just moved here in New England. We just moved to grade 8 as well. At least in Massachusetts, in some parts of New England, they're doing it in the 2nd grade. Here in the United States, we don't know. I don't think we hear a lot of accurate information about the Church in Canada, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so it's fascinating. It sounds like Catholic school and Catholic education is flourishing up there.
Oh, yes, and also because in our Constitution is partly funded by the government. So
really?
let's say I am a taxpayer in the city. I have a choice to pay my land tax, property tax towards a Catholic school board or towards a public school board. I do have that choice.
Here in the United States, that's what you probably know. That's one of our most controversial discussions.
Yeah. And I think what you mentioned is that people in the United States say that, well, because you are funded by the government, then you have to teach the government curriculum. But our curriculum, the Catholic curriculum, and we call it the family life curriculum, is dictated by the Episcopal Conference of our diocese.
Oh, wow. With no interference from the government at all.
No, so long as you teach the other, subjects. And so the only one thing that is now a kind of a debate in Canada is that the transgender issue. Would the parents allowed to put in their, their interest or their demand on whether the teachers would translate to the parents what the kids confide to the teachers or not. Before, they thought that, no, the parents sometimes are discriminating against certain things. But now I think the group of parents are very vocal, and they would like to have their say in the education of their kids.
Okay. Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm fascinated by the story of your brother. Before I go any further, how do I pronounce his name?
Francis Xavier Nguyen Van Thuan.
Thuan. Nguyen Van Thuan. Okay, good.
That's right. You did it right.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I do believe that I heard him speak at St. John's Seminary after I was ordained. And I remember him talking about his 13 years in prison. And as we understand, 9 of them was in solitary confinement. And I remember him saying those were the toughest years.
Yeah, it was the toughest years for him. He always said that, yeah.
And the reason why he was imprisoned is not only is because of his faith and at least according to the government, I guess, because of his faith and his connection to the family of the first president of South Vietnam.
That's right. And also because there are other things too. Because you see, he was the youngest bishop in Vietnam at that time. And also because he is the president of the Episcopal Conference of all the bishops in Vietnam. Oh, so
yes. Now it's. I'll tell you this story. You may appreciate. There's a. I'm a baby boomer. I am not old enough for having fought in the war in Vietnam, but I am a veteran, and I knew a lot of Vietnam veterans. So of this Vietnamese priest in our diocese, a great guy. He talked about flying into Hanoi and attending an ordination of priests. And I said, as someone the age I am, that is something beyond my understanding that could ever happen. And he said, no, it's all changed now.
Yes. During the time of my brothers being in jail, it was very restricted. But after the 1998, when John Paul II canonized 117 Vietnamese martyrs in Rome, despite the fact that the communist regime objected to that, but John Paul II went ahead with that. And so that was the same year that my brother was liberated. And from that year on, there were improvements. There were less restriction. Of course, now the Catholic Church is flourishing. All the in Canada now, we needed priests, so there are Vietnamese priests who are now in many parishes of Canada.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the government has no problem with them coming to other countries?
No, they don't have any problem with that. And also, the only problem is, say, suppose you, in your sermons, you really talk about against the communist doctrine and all of that, then they make sure that the bishop will talk to you and silence you somehow. So long as you stick to the gospel and don't just, of course the gospel is supporting human rights and everything, but don't name them. Don't just say, so-and-so did this or did that or whatever. But simply the gospel without naming on the wrongdoing of the communist regime then they okay with that.
Wow. So, I mean, that's a radical change from back when, back when the communists took over South Vietnam and when they ran North Vietnam.
That's right.
Which now is Vietnam.
Which now is Vietnam, yes. And I have a few friends, priests, who are Vietnamese, as well as foreign priests who went back to Vietnam, especially Father Leclerc, who wrote the book with me. He went there for a while, for a few months. And they say that after COVID pandemic, the government suddenly realized that the Catholic Church is the only institution totally, positively, 100% committed to going out and help the shut-in and help administer vaccine and help delivering food to people who are really in quarantine. And they suddenly realize that, yes, that gospel of love does make a difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So this is just fascinating because we go from, and you have to realize that one of my heroes as an American is John McCain. Of course, he's died now.
Yeah.
Who was imprisoned in Hanoi, but even he went back and he reconciled with the government, and he and the government got along very well later on in his years.
Yes. Yes. All of that is really to the credit of our culture. The Confucius culture is always whatever happened, let it go and make peace. That's our culture, the Confucian teaching. And that goes a long way, I think, in the fact that you can see in the world, which country is it that has been dominated by France and China and Japan, and then last one is America. Well, which country who has gone through so much and so much killing and wartime has now totally reconciled with all the former colonizers?
Oh gosh, that's a powerful statement. And as you say, that comes from Confucius. Just let it go.
I think it is our Confucian teaching that it has always, you put aside all the quarrels because our utmost goal is to find peace, to build up the society. And so now I think the government, I am not saying they are believing in the peace of Christian peace, but in the peace that of our culture. And because now all they want is really to build up the country, infrastructure, finding job, and making the people less poor and, out of poverty, and bring the country out of that third world stigma. And you know very well that now Vatican has the permanent representative in Vietnam since this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And if we look at it, the social mission of the Vatican, of the Church, and what you're saying the government is looking for in Vietnam are the same.
Are the same. It's just a big difference. And my brother always said, for other dogmas like communism or socialism, it remains on the human level. But for us, Christ is the center of all our action.
We're going to talk more with Elizabeth Nguyen, who is the sister of Cardinal Thuan, and we're going to be talking to her all week. So it's a fascinating, rather stark story, but a fascinating story. And of course, for him, it was an experience that ultimately led to his hope and joy, and just a powerful experience. And I heard him speak to us when I was, he came to Boston. He came to St. John Seminary, and I was a priest at that time. But I heard him speak, and he had said that the most difficult part of his experience was the 9 years in solitary confinement. Just a tragic situation brought on by the evil of human beings. We're going to be back tomorrow. In the meantime, have yourself a blessed day.